Something huge just happened that might send a certain stock flying. Yesterday, history was made. On May 30th, SpaceX was able to send 2 astronauts to the International Space Station in the Falcon 9 rocket. Not only was this the first time in 9 years that any US astronaut has been sent to space from US soil, but it also marked the success of SpaceX's reusable rocket. I think one stock in particular will benefit heavily from this come Monday and for many years to come, and no, it's not Tesla. It's the only pure play on the space industry in the entire stock market right now. It is Virgin Galactic, ticker symbol SPCE. What is Virgin Galactic and how does it work? We're talking about its leadership, its investors, its balance sheet, the space industry, my personal history with this stock, and so much more coming up in this video right now. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? My name is Matthew. Welcome to my channel, and today we're talking about all things Virgin Galactic. I am so excited to talk about this one. It is literally one of a kind. It is the only stock out there right now that you and I can invest in to invest in the blossoming space industry, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. We'll also talk about my love-hate relationship with this stock because I made a lot of money with it, and I also lost a lot of money with it. But for now, here's how we're breaking things down. First, what is Virgin Galactic? How does it work and what are the opportunities here? Second, the SpaceX Effect. How does the successful launch of SpaceX affect this stock? Third, we'll take a look at their balance sheet, which actually surprised me in some sort of way. And fourth, who is invested in Virgin Galactic? Who is in company leadership? Then fifth, we've got the space industry itself, where quote-unquote trillions will be made. And finally, sixth, we're going to talk about the risks involved, my personal history with the stock, and if or how I am buying. Now I know that was a lot, but don't get overwhelmed. I promise these are all really short parts of the video, but they're very concise and to the point, so stick with it. There are 6 parts to this video, and 6 letters in the word rocket.
Coincidence? I think not!
Oh boy. Obviously, the comedic value on this channel is huge, so feel free to subscribe. Jumping right into it, part 1, what is Virgin Galactic? How does it work, and what are the opportunities? Alright, so there's actually 2 ships involved with Virgin Galactic's process. There's the big carrier called White Knight 2, which carries Spaceship 2 to an elevation of 50,000 feet. Then, Spaceship 2 is released from the carrier and fires its own rocket engine to reach 360,000 feet elevation or 110 kilometers. At this point, they've passed the line where flyers are considered astronauts. You literally become an astronaut. They do their thing and they, float around in space. Then they begin re-entry and they're actually able to glide back down and land on any conventional runway. Both parts of the carrier and the shuttle are completely reusable, batteries sold separately. This little journey that we've just described and watched unfold can be used in a multitude of ways, ranging from space tourism to microgravity science experiments to manufacturing. In fact, I think one of the most overlooked opportunities for Virgin Galactic is manufacturing, but we'll talk about that after we talk about ticket sales. Virgin Galactic already has 600 people ready to purchase their $250,000 tickets. Some people have already paid the $250,000 fee to claim their ticket and be the first in line, and 7,000 people have registered online to be on the waiting list or to be informed about mission updates. In fact, there's been so much demand that Virgin started the One Small Step program, where you can make a fully refundable $1,000 deposit on your ticket. 400 people made this deposit already, and if all 400 of those people turn into customers and pay the $250,000 ticket, then that's over $100 million in future potential revenue. And now for the opportunity that many people don't think about. Virgin has already struck deals with NASA to develop high-speed, speed-of-sound Mach technology, and they struck a deal with the Italian Space Agency. Here's what the Italian Space Agency had to say. Space tourism, space manufacturing, and in-orbit services are key themes of the space segment in the new space economy. And I wanted to pinpoint manufacturing because Virgin Galactic is not just a space tourism business. There are some products and materials that can be developed in a much higher quality at a zero-G or microgravity environment as compared to down here on Earth. If you want an example, fiber optics. I don't know why I'm acting like I'm holding one. Maybe I can like put one there and edit. Just look at this comparison between fiber optics produced in 0G versus 1G. Fiber optics are crucial not only for the military and government security, but also for 5G and all high-speed internet. With ease of access to space and prolonged time in a 0G environment, especially relative to a traditional rocket, I would not be surprised if Virgin Galactic developed a large amount of business based around space manufacturing. So now that we know what Virgin Galactic is, how it works, and what opportunities await this young company, let's talk about what SpaceX's successful launch could mean for this stock. Part 2, the SpaceX Effect. This historic launch, in a way, reignited our nation's fascination with space. But even more than that, it validates the idea of the privatization of the space industry. This is very important, especially for Virgin Galactic, because it proves that private companies can make it to the final frontier and that they can develop capable technology. Unfortunately, however, you cannot invest in SpaceX stock, and trust me, I would if I could. And please, for the love of God, stop saying that
You can invest in Tesla because of SpaceX. They are not the same thing.
However, again, the only pure play on space right now in the stock market is SPCE, Virgin Galactic stock. I actually first entered Virgin Galactic stock about half a year ago, back in December of 2019. That is forward for you guys, so back in December for 2019. So I know it's very prone to huge moves and very reactive to big news. Heck, the stock fell 3.71% in after hours when SpaceX canceled their initial launch. A 3.71% move based on pretty much zero news. It was canceled because of bad weather. If cloudy and rainy days can move space stock or SPCE 3 to 4%, imagine what a successful Falcon 9 launch could do. Now granted, it did have a little bit of a rally on Friday in anticipation for the launch, but I would not be surprised to see a pretty decent green day on Monday for SPCE stock. Am I telling you to try and get in right now? No. Well, first of all, because we're long-term investors now, guys. Come on. But also because I'm not a financial advisor, I would never tell you what to do with your money. It's all my opinion. But am I buying in? I will tell you later on in this video.
Got it!
But right now, let's do some housekeeping and look at the financials of Virgin Galactic to see if they can even back up this whole story. To do that, we're going to have to look at their balance sheets. Yay. I know this part's not the most exciting, but it's extremely valuable, so listen up and we'll be done quick. Let's get the ugly part out of the way. As with so many startups and early ventures, Virgin Galactic showed a net loss of $60 million. That's a much bigger loss than a year ago in Q1 of 2019, but it's smaller than their recent $73 million loss in Q4 of 2019, just 1 quarter ago. But I'm not too worried about this for two main reasons. One is they're always in different stages of development, so it makes sense for 1 quarter to be a little more capital intensive than the next. Second, check out their cash. Virgin Galactic has a whopping $419 million in cash and $475 million in total current assets. Now, take those numbers and compare them to their total current liabilities of $113 million and total liabilities of $136 million. They're not in a bad place at all. This means that their current ratio, which is calculated by current assets over current liabilities, is at 3.7. Generally, anything between 1 to 2 is pretty good, and they're at 3.7. And lastly, before we get into who's leading and investing in Virgin Galactic, if you're wondering how are they making money right now if they can't even do commercial flights? Well, they've got a little side hustle going on. It's nothing compared to my door dashing, but they generated $238,000 in revenue last quarter from engineering services. They're actually in a pretty good place in terms of cash and debt, and that's something I definitely was surprised by because I figured building a spacecraft would be pretty capital intensive and you might have to rely on debt a little bit more. But nope, And that's in thanks to part 4, who's invested in Virgin Galactic and who is in leadership. I think leadership is a huge part of stock analysis and often an overlooked portion by a lot of investors. Virgin Galactic was founded in 2004 by Sir Richard Branson and Bert Rutan? Richard Branson is an entrepreneurial legend who founded the Virgin Group, which controls more than 400 companies. But unfortunately, some of those businesses, including Virgin Atlantic, are struggling heavily during these times of the pandemic. But Matt, Richard Branson sold $500 million worth of his Virgin Galactic shares. I know, I'm getting to that. Richard Branson's airline businesses are struggling right now, and he had no other choice but to liquidate some of his assets, including $500 million worth of Virgin Galactic shares. But this sale had way less to do with his amount of faith in Virgin Galactic and way more to do with keeping his Virgin Empire afloat. You said Virgin Empire. Nonetheless, Richard Branson is an entrepreneurial veteran and visionary, and his countless failures in all aspects of business have made him, in my opinion, a great leader for this company. The CEO of Virgin Galactic is George T. Whitesides, and he was formerly Chief of Staff at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, otherwise known as NASA. You know who else was a chairman and invested $100 million in this company? Chamath Palihapitiya. Did I say that right? I said that right! This guy is the real deal. He was an early investor in Slack, Facebook, and Bitcoin. It's not only great to see that he has a large amount of skin in the game, but he's also a seasoned investor. If I were to invest in a company, I would not mind following someone who predicted Facebook, Slack, and Bitcoin. As I say, it's always better to invest in great leaders with a decent idea than a great idea with decent leaders. And honestly, I think Virgin Galactic might just have both. And I haven't even touched on some of the details about their market or their 66% profitability per trip. If you want a more detailed follow-up video for Virgin Galactic about their revenue projections, profit margins, and my actual holdings in Virgin Galactic, then let's hit 300 likes. If that happens and you leave a comment below, then I will make that video for you guys. Next, we're zooming out our lens and talking about the space industry as a whole. Part 5, the space industry. Yay. To put it simply, UBS analysts see the space sector reaching a $3 billion valuation in the next 10 years and a $20 billion valuation by 2030. Not too shabby. Not only is Virgin going to contribute to this market cap and valuation, but there is so much more on the horizon. SpaceX, but there's also Boeing with the Boeing Starliner, and Amazon with Blue Origin. There is an entire space mining industry that is yet to be industrialized, which by the way is projected to be worth about $2.84 billion by 2025, and it's still in its infancy. Like it's literally like a fetus. There's also the US Space Force. No, not the Netflix original, the actual US Space Force, like military branch. And here's a little thinker for you. Why would we develop an entire military branch for space if we weren't planning to get more involved in space travel in the future? If you're still thinking, the answer is we wouldn't. Developing an entire branch of the military for space is, at least in my opinion, clear evidence that we will be moving to space inevitably. I think space is the next big thing, and I know I'm not alone in that view. I'm not special. In fact, there are people saying that there are quote-unquote trillions to be made. Investing in space is like investing in the 5G trend or the AI trend. But unlike those two trends I just mentioned, there's only really one place you can go right now that's a pure play on space. Virgin Galactic. Just wait till they make a space ETF. Now the part that many of you may have been waiting for, am I buying, what are the risks, and what is my history with space stock? Let's start with the risks. I'll name 3. First, one crash and the company could be done. You lose public trust and sales will probably go down the toilet, they go bye-bye, and you lose your company. Second, it is extremely speculative. It's probably one of the most speculative mainstream stocks out there right now. This stock moves about 2 to 5% every day if it wants to, and it's very susceptible to news because there's only really shreds of tangible physical evidence that prove that this business will be a success. But that's not to say those shreds of evidence don't mean anything at all, because they do. The third and final risk I'll talk about is a small TAM or total addressable market. Not only do you have to find someone brave and daring enough to launch themselves past the atmosphere on new tech that hasn't had a very long track record of success, but they also have to have a cool $250,000 just lying around. Granted, ticket prices will probably come down a lot over the years. It'll probably stay around $250,000 for the time being. So those are just some of the risks, but with everything in mind, I will be buying Virgin Galactic stock. In fact, I already have. I bought in and started a new position about a week or two ago, and now I'm holding for the long term. But here's my history with Virgin Galactic. I first bought in December 2019 around $10, and I bought in and out of that stock over and over again, all the way up to the peak of $42. So I basically quadrupled my initial investment, and I was very risk tolerant at the time. So I had a lot of money in space. I was making a lot of money. But I made the fatal mistake of falling in love with the stock, and I was in denial, like, no way this could ever crash, and this was probably my biggest experience with the pump and dump. It was exhilarating waking up to a 20% daily gain like every other day. But at the same time, I lost discipline, I got emotional, and I didn't sell when I should have sold. Anyways, the point is I learned my lesson. I have that love-hate relationship with this stock because I think it has so much potential, and it got me so high, but then it burned me. And I say it, but really I did it to myself. For now, I think it's a good buy, personally. Of course, not a financial advisor, we all have to say that on YouTube. But personally, I see the downside is limited as it's around $15 to $17 right now, and it hit lows of around $9, and it's been all the way up to $42. But it is extremely speculative, so I'm going to be very careful with my allocations. And again, if you want a more detailed video on why I'm buying, a better analysis of Virgin Galactic, and look into maybe more reasons why Chamath got involved in the first place, then get this video to 300 likes, comment down below, and I will do that for you guys. As always, we'll end with the quote of the day. I didn't feel like a giant. I felt very, very small. That's from Neil Armstrong, first guy to walk on the moon. Big guy in history, and obviously related to space. We're talking about space stocks, and I think that his trip to the moon gave him a lot of perspective, and I think a lot of other people want this same perspective, something that they're going to be able to get on a trip with Virgin Galactic. Ties all together. Thank you so much for watching to all the way in this point in the video, and with that being said, don't forget your peace and thank yous.